this goddess temple opening, and my journey with Cuda, if you like, started when I went to an exhibition in Lansdowne Gallery, and it was curated by Patricia Bryan. I don't know if you know her. She and her partner, they do the Cocoa Caravan, you know, the beautiful chocolates. And she's an artist, and she did an exhibition that with other artists where they were looking at the relationship between spirit and land and activism. And so that was where I first discovered Cuda and the Cuculatti, and she's made a beautiful frieze depicting Cuda in that form, the mother goddess like that, and the Cuculatti, the three. So Cuculatti means hooded spirit, and she's quite often depicted with the Cuculatti, Cuda, and so these photos were taken at Cirencester Museum. There are also mother goddesses in Gloucester Museum. It's the kind of thing that's sort of hidden away in a glass cabinet and really easy to overlook because all the focus is on Roman and post-Roman. And this is Celtic Roman, so it's what the Romans found and incorporated. It's very nice of Bliss to say I'm an authority. I mean, I've kind of read some books by archaeologists, one called by Stephen Yates, a book called The Tribe of Witches, which is a really interesting book. He's an archaeologist. And Miranda Aldhouse Green, who's an archaeologist who's really interested in looking what's underneath the material and kind of tuning into the spirit of it. And so Stephen Yates has unearthed a lot of really interesting prehistorical stuff about the landscape, many aspects of the landscape around here, including Cuda, and the name Cuda has been discovered through this particular relief, which has got the three Cuculatti and then the remains of a seated mother goddess there, and this was found at Daglingworth at a water shrine, and it had the Roman inscription Cuda and the Genii Cuculatti, so that's where the name comes from, and so then Cuculatti have appeared at Hadrian's Wall and in a kind of across Celtic Europe. There are instances, and so in Celtic times the power of three. So there, that mother goddess. Well, there are three matres there, and then that mother goddess has three fruits in her lap. I like to think they're apples. And then the three Cuculatti here. So there are a lot of things in triplicate, or the three faces of the goddess, or maiden, mother, crone. But there's a lot of that iconography of threes. So what he found through exploring the Cotswolds was that there are lots of place names which have got cod or cud in them. You know, like there is a Cud Hill, which is near Painswick Beacon, and there's a Cud Lane, which is on the way to Gloucester, and there's a place called Codlington, and there are quite a few place names across the Cotswolds which seem to be related to the name Cuda. And so from that he extrapolated that you could say that the Cotswolds are like Cuda's wolds, and I think, you know, his academic peers would challenge him on that, but I really like the idea of that, and I'm happy to go along with that idea. And anyway, so it really fired my imagination making this discovery and seeing Patricia's artwork. And so with that in mind, I went to one of my places that I go to, which is the Heavens Waterfall, and I took an offering of flowers there, and I lit a candle and just kind of dropped into being there and tuned into this idea of this. I just found it so exciting that we have this goddess here, and as I was, so it was very still that day, and I turned away to put my flowers in the water as my offering, and when I turned back, the candle had just gone out, even though it was completely still. So that really felt like, I'm getting a response. And
Hi.
So then somebody arriving. So then the next time I went with Patricia, and hi, welcome.
Come there. Sit down.
Hi, welcome.
They can come into the centre. Oh, there's a window seat here as well.
Oh, good.
Cushions
Good.
over there.
Yes, you can do it there.
Yes, all right. So I was just telling the story of how I discovered about Cuda. It was through this artist, Patricia, and how I was really excited about the idea of Cuda and went to the Heavens Waterfall. And the first time I went, I made an offering, and as I turned away, having been meditating, even though it was a completely still day, the candle just went out, and that felt like a response to what was happening there. And so then I told Patricia about it. We both went, and we sat in the same spot and took flowers and blew our prayers and our love into our offering, and we sat with the candle, and there was a breeze that day, and so you can see, because there's a bit of a breeze, the wax is starting to fall down. So that was happening with the candle, and we kind of went and made our offering to the water, and thought, right, well, we'll blow the candle out now then. And it wouldn't go out, so we thought, okay, all right, we'll just wait. And then it felt like the right moment. So then we blew it, and at that moment, you'll probably think this is really bonkers, but the wax and the wax sculpture made by the wind came apart, and to us that really looks like one of the Cuculatti, one of the hooded nature spirits that tend the Earth Mother Goddess Cuda. And so we really felt that in a sense we were being called to really invoke that being that nature spirit, or relating to that nature spirit, and so that felt really like a very potent experience. And since then, through reading various archaeologists and walking the land, I find I just have my experience of the landscape has completely transformed, and so it's more of a lived experience than a really heavily academic thing. I mean, I get that. I did an MA many years ago, so I really understand the rigours of academia and how important that is. But for me, this is kind of really appreciating the work of Stephen Yeats or Miranda Aldhouse Green or other writers. I mean, Caitlin Matthews I've been reading more recently, who writes a lot about Celtic Arthurian mythology, and she traces, she kind of looks at the what we hold in our DNA, our ancient psychic imprints. She can trace back to pre-Celtic times, to all the way back to the wild herdsman, who we would probably now say is the Green Man, the sacred masculine, and the Dark Lady of Knowledge. You know, that aspect of the goddess. So that's the kind of backdrop of what has come through, and then Cuda seems to be from the pre-Roman Celtic, the Deboni tribe that lived in this area, and that, even that, my impression is that the Deboni kind of forged a relationship with the Romans when they came, and they kept their spiritual, their gods and their spiritual life, and it was absorbed by the Romans. And so that devotional relationship to the land, so I came to an understanding about Cuda, which this is just my experience, you would all have your own experience, but mine is that she's a personification of the bountiful land here in the Cotswolds. It's very, the richness of the Severn Valley, and the floodplains, and it was clearly very well inhabited. There are 150 to 250 long barrows, aren't there, in this region, and so it was quite densely inhabited.
7 Cotswold barrows.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was obviously a very rich place where you could live a good life, and so that's she feels like she embodies that, the abundance of the land, and also he suggests that, and I see it more and more now, that with these valleys there are kind of cauldron shapes in the landscape, and so there was a tribe in the Saxon times, when this land was part of Mercia. There was a tribe called the Whicker, and he sees them as a tribe which kind of followed on from the Deboni. So there was the Roman settlement, and then the Anglo-Saxons and so on, but that there was still this sense of being really deeply connected to the land, and the Whicker means keepers of the cauldron, and so that was going on for several hundred years, this deep relationship to the land. So it's very exciting to kind of bring that back to life now with what we're doing. And what was that? And also I've discovered more recently that in Mercia, the Saxon royal houses, the women, the queens, were as powerful as the kings. They had they legitimated male power, which I thought it's certainly not what I learned about in history, and it just seemed like a really interesting, almost like a throwback to the idea of sovereignty, and sovereignty is an ancient idea, isn't it, or an ancient way of being, which followed through Arthurian legends. So I feel that Cuda is a personification of this beautiful land, very abundant land, and that she's changed form or changed shape, and in a sense she's one face of goddess. is one face of goddess and one which relates particularly to this land. I think that's